the HH50. We're about 3/4 finished right now, getting ready to ship it over to what's going to be the Palm Beach Boat Show in March 2020. And we'll see the boat in the test pool here. We'll see the interior pretty far along. We'll see some of the systems working, but I think you'll get a good feel what the boat's all about. I just kicked everyone off the boat. There's probably 20 people on this getting ready for the Palm Beach Boat Show coming up. So we just cleared off a bunch of boxes and things like that. We're about 3/4 of the way through, but I thought I'd give you an idea of the feel, the size of the interior with everything assembled. Previously you've seen the boat just in shells and parts and pieces on the factory floor, but now we're going to get a spatial feel for how big this boat is. When I first got aboard the boat, when it was assembled like this, I thought, boy, this has got a lot more room than I thought it did, meaning it's a big boat inside. It's really well thought out. The galley here is still the U-shaped galley, and this particular boat has the TV that goes in here and comes up and then it swivels. So rather than having an island, this has been extended out, which I think is rather smart. What that does is it allows for more storage over here, where you'd have a recyclable bin and a trash can access through the top and through the side. This boat has the square farm sink in it, which I'll show you. And again, this has the Force 10. This one is a 4-burner stove. You can also get the 3-burner. It has a broiler and an oven. And what's not on the boat yet is there's a shelving system that goes up here. It starts about here, like this. It goes here. It's the same color as the rest of the wood. A lot of drawers over here, which I'll show, and the cabinetry. The refrigerator and the freezer are in there. They're not in their little area yet, but they will be. And there's another double set here, so there's actually 3 fridges, 1 freezer, 2 freezers, and 2 fridges. The galley has the farm sink, which is really a pretty big rectangular sink, and it has the ability to put inserts in it for dishes or cleaning vegetables, things like that. So it's big enough to put a baby seal in it. That's how big it is. It's very unique for a boat to have this, but you could also have a double standard sink if you wish to. That's actually the standard. Again, this is the TV, lots of shelf space here. There are 2 inserts, 2 things you can take out to put trash in right from your sink, and there's access to the trash can underneath. Over here we've got drawers and cabinets, and this is already out. There's a microwave that'll go in there, and another space. There's a shelf above it, and of course I mentioned earlier the shelving that goes overhead. This isn't ready to put in yet, but this will slide in, so there'll be the L shape, so you'll have fridge, freezer, or fridge, freezer. It's up to you how you want to adjust the temperatures. But look at the shelf space here, and look at the shelf beyond that. There'll be some air conditioning vents here, as opposed to on the 55, where they're here. They'll be cleverly put in behind this valance panel here. So there's a lot of shelf space to work with. And unique to the 50 are the opening ports. There's a port either side of the middle, and there's a large opening port behind the mast here. With an L-shaped settee like this, you have the space here for a table, and this boat is getting a table. That can go up and down and make this a double, so that's really important. There's a lot of space underneath. There are 2 air conditioner condenser units, but they're pushed forward, so you still have this much room, and I'll show you, to put things in, and you can organize with Tupperware cases, or we can put a wine rack, which is very common for us to do. There is a vent on the other side, so you're going to keep that fairly open in order to get air into the air conditioner. But just to show you the space here, again, I'm 6'2", which you've heard before in my other videos, but I wanted to show you what we have to play with here. So, you know, if you're a little bit taller, you might lie diagonal, but there's room at least for a pillow. So for a daybed, it's a good setup. But you also have the other settee in the boat, and then you have 2 settees in the cockpit, and then you have the 4 cabins. So there's a lot of room to be in different places if you need to, you know, crash during a delivery, or you just want to just sleep out in the salon. The navigation station has an active place here for electronics on the side versus on the 55, which is already here. So to make up for the difference, you know, remember this boat's about this much shorter, we put this at a slope here to allow to have additional instrumentation. So cleverly they put the C-zone here, and also you can have your Spectre water maker and your stereo and other things built into this panel. And there's also a nice generator panel with full gauges, by the way. And then here you would put your BNG and your VHF if you wish. There's still room here for a laptop, and you could actually have, if you wanted a second screen, one of those new 16-inch portable USB screens for your laptop could go there if you want to have us mount that. So there's room here for a chair. You would make it either a flip-up chair or a movable chair. This is a handhold here so you don't flip over backwards into the staircase. So this is pretty much the standard arrangement. And you also have this shelf here, which is also something that's a little bit different. And this settee is like the 55, the big difference being that it has an armrest here. You have storage underneath, and this space here is accessed through a drawer going this way, or a drawer going this way. It's up to you how your interior is. But lots of space here. This is all open for you to play with, whatever you want to do. But again, the space here, and remember there's going to be the sliders. Now the sliders actually don't have to, they can go all the way across and keep this open, so you can have the space you see now. So this is a little bit shorter than the 55, and you don't have to get that armrest if you don't want it, but this is about what you have to work with. Now, if you wanted to, and you can barely see it through the floor here, but this gets a table. That table could come down and make this into a double again, and that's actually quite common, and you might have seen that on our 55s at the boat show. And for someone my height, I would just sleep on this side because my toes would go past this. There's a door that goes here, but this shows you where the TV goes, and it can show you how big it is. You know, you could easily put I guess it's a 40-some-odd inch TV. It might be able to go a little bit larger. But this is on a lift here, and there's a button that controls it goes up and down. So this you don't see. You only take it off for service. You have a little snap that holds this in place. Over here are where all the lights are, just like in the other HH boats that you've seen. The space up here could be a good place to put cockpit cushions when you don't want them to get wet when you're leaving the boat or it's pouring rain out and you want to bring them in. This is a good place for it. But it's big enough to do a lot of things with this. If you had a very large family and you really wanted to, and you put a lee berth here, you could have this be a crib or another place to sleep. So it's actually a good use of space that you might want to get creative about. We just put the cushions in so you can see kind of what this is like. There's a lot of selections with cushions. But you can see there's a little bit of a raise here, a nice angle. The refrigerators are now in over here, and you can see how the shelving system works. And you get a little bit of a preview of the floor, and you can see the contrast between the darker wood and the lighter floor and the neutral cushions. It's a nice combination. The starboard cabin is the same physical size as the port cabin for the berth and so forth, but since it has a staircase here, and rather than walking on a flat floor forward, you'd have a staircase, it changes things a little bit. So for example, underneath of the berth we have a bigger drawer on the starboard side because we don't have to worry about the settee being there. And again, underneath of the berth is all open space except for a water heater that's shoved to one side, and there's an air conditioning condenser, but it's 2 or 3 of us can get in there. I'm standing up on the berth because I just wanted to show how big this thing is height-wise. I'd be about 4 inches taller with the cushion. But it's a very non-claustrophobic cabin. It's all done in white back here, and there's a big window here, and opening ports, and escape, and so forth here. Very comfortable and very spacious. It's a good place to spend time. Coming aft, I'm walking through the Jack and Jill head, so we have the forward head here, and we have a shower, which is in the middle. There's a grate, full headroom. There's a separate window, and there's an overhead hatch as well. It's all finished off, so it's easy to spray around in here. There's also panels that are removed to allow you to get to various mechanical things that you need to get to. The head itself is pretty good. There's room here to here, so it's not like you're going in and you have to open a door to use the head. It's a usable head for sure, and there's a medicine cabinet as well. Lots of hangers. Again, it's all finished. This is paint, but it looks like gel coat, but that's how shiny it is. Just wanted to illustrate how large the cabinet is. This is a hanging locker here. It's quite deep. This one is all cedar lined. This material here is actually the artificial wood, but it looks pretty good. You can also get real wood, but in some of the styles of the artificial wood, it looks like real wood. It looks pretty good. Just want to kind of show the cabinetry in the starboard aft cabin here. This is a double shelf system here, so there's a lip so things don't come flying off on the top shelf, but it's rather deep. You can see with my arm sticking in. So there's quite a bit of room in there, and you can put bins and have your shirts and your socks and things in there if you wish. There's also an open shelf here just to put things, and that's up to you whether you want to have this be additional cabinetry or the shelf. This particular fellow wanted to have the shelf. Then you have large, deep drawers, and these are creative, so they go around fixtures on the inside, so they're built to take the maximum amount of space possible. They have a finish on the bottom. They're all finished on the sides. And then we have an opening door here. Or actually, it's a small drawer. So that's on this side of the boat. On the opposite side of the boat is a very large hanging locker. This is cedar lined and has a rod, and it's quite deep. So it's deep enough that you can put a regular hanger and hang jackets or folded pants. So that's a storage that we have just readily apparent in the guest cabin. Also underneath of the berth is a very large drawer that's a little bit wider than the other cabin because we don't have the settee coming out. So this is actually wider. So that'll take folded shirts easily. Then of course there's openings for mechanical access, but I tell folks that if they have things in a bag, they can put them in these lockers, and it's things that you wouldn't get to, for quite a while. So there is a series of these lockers throughout the boat. And then in the aft cabin itself, there's shelving systems, there's USB plugs, there's AC outlets, there's air conditioning head controls, and then there's access to wiring. But again, if you had something in a bag, you could put it there. Just like on the other side of the boat, you have access to things like the Jaffa system here, and this is the steering system, all easy to get to. Nothing is buried in the boat. Same thing with the sides. They all Velcro off, and you can get to your wiring and your Jaffa system. Again, some other interesting areas to store things. Underneath, we've got the water heater here. We have the box or the drawer I showed you, but behind it is a huge amount of space, and 2 or 3 people can get down in there. So for storage, just in this one cabin, it has liveaboard capability. One of the things that people ask about in a Performance Cat, you have narrower hulls, is how much room do I have in my hulls? Is it going to be claustrophobic? Is it going to be tight? Am I going to have room to put cabinets and so forth? Well, I wanted to show you my first impression of this boat when it was assembled. Is this has a lot of room in it. This is the width that we're working with, and I'm already up against a cabinet. There's another cabinet over here that I'm not even touching. And that goes in, of course, because it's a cabinet. Look at the headroom. There's a lot of headroom in the boat. There's a real good spacious feel. We have maybe 1/3 of the lights turned on right now. There's a little bit of light coming in through the aft window, and just the camera's working fine. There's a lot of light even without turning on lights. And we're in a building. So let's talk about the utility of the shower. Its purpose is to be able to have a head sitting here without hitting your head on it. So you have your shower head, your controls, a shelf to put your soap, and then you need to have some natural light, preferably, not just a light overhead, which we also have. But there is a port light on the side. It's fixed, it doesn't open, and then there's an opening hatch overhead. So being a Jack and Jill head, we have the ability to have a slightly larger shower and decent sized heads in this boat. The difference between this boat and the 55 comes in the shower. This is probably about 2/3 the size of it, but it's big enough to do the job. And again, I'm 6'2", and I've got lots of room. So with all the lights, the port light, the overhead hatch, it doesn't have a feeling of any kind of claustrophobia. It's all done in white, and it's a comfortable shower. The way that the heads are positioned to the water closet, the toilet itself, it's facing this way. You'll see on some boats that they actually face the door. Well, they do that for people that are very tall, have to open the door for their knees to go at it. And you don't notice that until you buy the boat or charter it or whatever, get on it. This boat, it actually has quite a bit of room that you don't have to do that little trick. So it's actually a real head. It's comfortable to use. It's your typical freshwater based head. There is a sink in here, there's a cabinet, and there is a medicine cabinet. The sink on this is smaller than the one on the 55, but it's deep enough for you it's about this deep, about this wide. This boat has a holding tank built in. It's carbon fiber. It's accessed through a port right here that you can pull off and open up the inspection port if you had to go in there and clean it out. It follows the shape of the hull here, and it's a vertical tank that it's gravity emptying. So all you have to do is open this hatch here, pull a through hull, and that's how you empty the holding tank if you're offshore. But there's also a pump out on deck that comes straight up here, and it's right up on top of the deck. The heads themselves have opening side ports, and they also have an overhead hatch. The shower just has the overhead hatch. This is the medicine cabinet here, and it's reasonably deep. The sink is a sink with a storage underneath of it, and it has a big drain. And the head, of course, is just like the other head, facing transverse in the boat. The bilges in the boat are all painted. There's nothing unfinished anywhere in this boat. So even if you get down in the bilge and looked up, you're going to see finished material. Now, if you're looking at the bilge now, you'll see that the through hulls, which are Marelon made by Forspar, that's a professional grade, by the way, are all easy to get to. Each section of the hull that needs a bilge pump gets a bilge pump. And what we're seeing here that's a little bit big to the side, this is the fuel tank. And the fuel tank has its own inspection port. Up here we have a air conditioning pump, and we have a strainer for the generator. We still have some work to do in here. There's going to be some shelving and so forth that goes in, but I just want to give you an idea that this is not a punishment cabin. For a lot of boats, forward cabins and catamarans are very small. This is actually quite large. It has a large hanging locker. It's actually got one of the largest hanging lockers in the boat, and has another set of cabinetry outboard. So it's a comfortable place to be. It's more of a full size near where your pillows would go. So this is what we're dealing with here, but we're gaining another foot at the where you would put your pillows. Now there is an option on this boat to have, in a space for it, a flip down berth here, and that's a good idea. You could always put it up if you want. We started the 66s with those, but now you can have them in the 50s, and you can pull them down, and it's a great place to put suitcases or duffel bags, or that extra guest. I have two here and one up here. On the starboard hull, because there's an L-shaped settee in the salon, there's an unused space in the corner where the two refrigerators go like this, but there's a space right here. And that's an excellent place to have a deep pantry. And this is one of the deepest pantries in the boat. Or it could be a pantry, it could be foul weather gear, it could be whatever you want, but it's really quite large. You can even put your tools in there if you wanted to. So it's a great use of space. There's also some little doors that remove here. They're really machinery access or plumbing access, but again, if you had something in a bag, you could put it there. There are hatches wherever you need hatches, so that's important. There's bilge pumps in here. In the center here is the fuel tank, and I'll show that separately. The fuel tank in the center here has a large inspection port that can be removed if needed, but there's other ways to look in it too. You can simply just remove the fuel cap if you just have to take a sample. But all your hoses here will be clearly marked. They're not marked yet, but they will be. There's also going to be a double Raycor system here. That's a fuel polishing system as well, and there's a transfer pump to the other side of the boat. You can see that all the plumbing is color coded for the water on the side, and everything is finished well. I can't really go up in the salon at the moment because we just put down the Antico flooring, but you can kind of get a preview of what it's going to look like. This is the lighter color, sort of the oak color. What I wanted to show you is the escape hatch, and it's large enough for a large person to go through, which is important. I'm in the owner's cabin. It's the same size berth as in the guest aft cabin, but of course with the owner's cabin we have the whole length of the hull that we can play with. But I brought a tape measure with me, and I just wanted to show you what the dimensions are. So for width, we've got 63 and a half, and for length, including the edge here, we have 79 inches. Now there's another aspect that you need to pay attention to, because you don't know this until the first night you sleep on the boat. Now imagine we're going to be on like a 4 or 5 inch cushion. That's going to be up to you what we do here. We have a couple options for cushions, but even our base option is a comfortable one. What is the height? Because if you're sitting up like I am, are you going to be able to do that comfortably? So we have a height here of 57 inches to the ceiling. So even if you subtract 4 inches from that, that's a lot of height above your head. So that's comfortable. It's more like your house than being in a tube. On a lot of cats, you'll find that the engine's underneath the aft berth, or you might have a fuel tank or something in there that really negates the use of having it as a storage locker. In this boat, it's cavernous. Every locker, or every berth in this boat, has space underneath of it. Now we have a water tank in here, and we'll have an air conditioner head, but there's still a lot of room. So I just wanted to give you a feel for how big it is. And so I can almost have sitting headroom in here. So you can imagine that you could put in a bunch of Tupperware cases, things like that. You don't want to put a lot of weight in here just because it's here, but you certainly could put all your spare clothes for the winter, for example, or think of dog food or your pillows and so forth. There's a lot of room in each one of these cabins under each one of every berth. On the HH50, and like the other HH models, there's nothing really that's inaccessible. These panels will all remove with Velcro,
Underneath of it are wire, or cables and so forth. But this is part of the Jaffa system, it's part of the steering system. Every component of the steering system is accessible on this boat. And in my technical videos, which you get when you buy one of these boats, I show you how to access and service all those. On this Jaffa system, we've engineered with Jaffa to have as minimal turns as possible. So here we see it going underneath here directly to the rudders. And then here we have an elbow U-joint actually that goes up to the wheel itself. And that's all accessible, again, being able to get a wrench in there through all these access panels. And these pull right off. Your winch is up here by your wheel. This one's the Harken 2-speed, and your solenoid, and you also have a circuit breaker here, are all very accessible. And if you needed to take this out, all you needed to have is a socket set, turn off your batteries, take off your cables, and this will pull right out. So there's not a lot of mystery to be able to take this apart. And it's like anything else on the boat, everything's accessible. There's a couple cool things on this boat. There's a little bit of an indent. This goes underneath of the settee that allows for some inside storage, so it's a clever use of space. But it's a great place to put your wallet or your book that you're reading and so forth. And we have USB connections here, and we can put in the USB for your iPad too that recognizes as an iPad. That's all here. And then there's an access panel that comes in here, which is really just storage. But if you had things in like a canvas bag, you can just put additional stuff underneath. There is a tinted window here, and this owner is having an opening port. It's up to you whether you want to have the opening port or not, but he's putting an opening port right here in the center. But it's a picture window, so you can imagine if you're at anchor and you have the beach behind you and the palm trees or whatever you want, or the New England town, you see it like a picture window right out the side. But every single window on this boat has shade that comes down, so there is a shade underneath the valance panel that pulls down, and it's a translucent shade with a little bit of light through, and but you cannot see through it from the outside, and you can't see through it from the inside, but it does have a pleasant feel to it. On the HH50, the side windows extend the entire length of the inside section of the boat. So you have light everywhere, giving it a very non-claustrophobic feel, and that includes this window back here. It's a very light boat inside. But you also have side ventilation, so if you're in a marina or on a T-head and you don't have the wind coming from the front because you're on a mooring, you have opening ports on the side. So you have three kinds of lights back here. You have the overhead LED lights. You also have lights for reading, and then there's lights that are an accent light. So you can make this a very subtle lighting here for you waking up in the middle of the night. You just want to turn on a little bit of light, turn on a lot of lights, or you just turn on the reading lights. You know, it's hard to tell from a brochure or a rendering, a drawing. It's just how big are these hulls. And you know that with the Performance Cat, they're not really wide hulls. They're fairly narrow hulls for speed. So you think, are you going to have a sacrifice for that? But this is actually surprisingly spacious feeling. You can see the width here. So that's, I'm 6'2", and I'm not doing 6'2" here, but it's comfortably wide. So when you're walking by here, it's not like you're coming down a tube. And we still have full lockers and full lockers on both sides with a shelf. So you can see we have a shelf here that's a little over a foot, and then these lockers here are quite deep. See, those are cedar line lockers, by the way, which I'll show you. So with this owner's cabin, you have a full set of lockers, and we can play around a little bit with that, the way that you can do that. Full stand-up lockers here, and all the way forward, if you elect to have it, there's a washer and dryer, which I'll show you here. So it has essentially the same practical interior that you find in anything from 48 to 52 feet. It's quite comfortable in here. We're inside of a building. The doors are closed. We have some fluorescent lights on outside. And usually in a boat, it's a dark hole when you have that. But even this boat, with just a few of the lights have been turned on because we're still in construction. We have a lot of light coming through these ports just from the lights that are on the walls on the outside. So you can imagine what it would be like waking up with sunrise and all that. With a full-length windows like this, it really opens up this interior, so it doesn't feel like a tube. It feels like a much larger catamaran than we're actually on. It's a large forward shower, full headroom, completely closed off from the rest of the head. There's a shelf here for your shower on both sides of the boat, and there are hangers for claws and other things like that. So it's a real shower. It's very, very similar to what you would find in a house that has a bathtub and a separate shower. My impression here inside the shower is it feels big. It's very similar, or maybe even larger than some of the showers you would find in a high-end hotel room that have a separate tub and a shower. It's bigger than that. There are shelves on either side for your shampoo and your razor and other things. There are hangers for washcloths. There's an overhead hatch for air that's separate from the doorway here. And there's actually a side window that lets a lot of light in. Everything is just all well finished inside. There's no cloth to go crazy with the removable shower head. So it's very similar feel to what you'd have in a high-end hotel. There's a medicine cabinet here. We have a mirror that goes over the technical space, which is rather large on this boat. We have a decent-sized sink in the owner's cabin. It's pretty deep. There's a storage locker underneath of it, and there's a freshwater head here. So that's all things that you would expect, but there's plenty of shelf space and lots of light, and there's machinery space that's accessible through this forward head.
One of the other things that you don't really know until you buy a boat or you sleep overnight on the first time is, you know, where do you get ready in the morning? So for putting on makeup or shaving or whatever, what do you have to work with? Well, in this boat, there's a large mirror here. It's about this big, so it's full size. So you'll be able to see from your waist up. That'll be easy. There's good light overhead. There's good natural light behind you and overhead. There's a large sink with space to put things down. There's also a shelf over the back of the water closet, and there's a shelf over here. So there's a considerable amount of space to put things to get ready. So you ask, how much room do I have to work with? Well, if you're standing about this close to the sink, I'm a full arm's width away to the mirror. So you can lean in if you wanted to, but everything is right there and it's well lit. Again, we're in a building right now. We're just using a few of the lights that actually turn on at the moment. So it's a good feel. It has good light. All your switches are here. You got some electricity if you need it for a shaver or whatever, a curling iron, blow dryer. This area here is a cabinet with shelves. It's exposed, so you can have a little glass. You can completely close it if you wanted to, but this one's going to be open with little panels to keep things from falling out. But they're the exact width of a large toilet paper roll. So you can put additional things here and have everything available to you. Keep in mind this is away from the shower, so you can leave things out if you wish. You could be in Melda Marcos and like this boat. There's a lot of room for shoes if you wanted just to store shoes. But in reality, living aboard, most people looking at this boat, they want to have a lot of space. This is the owner's cabin, and there is a lot of space on this boat. Starting with this locker, this is where we put the washer and dryer, which I'll show separately. But below that is a very large, deep locker for all kinds of capabilities, and we'll work with you if you want shelves in there or if you want something else. And then underneath it here is a drawer, and it's a deep drawer. Okay, so that's panel number one. Then we've got panel number two, which is a full-size cabinet. In this boat, he wanted to have individual shelves, so we put in cedar shelves, but you could have this be a hanging locker. But the concept is with them is they're folding their clothes, they're not hanging all their clothes. There is a hanging locker, but that's rather large, and then there's another drawer underneath of it. So we can play with that a little bit. Then over here, these are half height, but they're full drawers, and to give you an indication of what the capability of this drawer of the drawer space is, not drawers, they're shelves. There's a toolbox in here. That's how deep it is. It's actually got that much extra room. And there are three shelves with a lip. Then working further back, then we get into the hanging locker space here. And this is very clever. It's a large cedar line hanging locker, but there's additional storage underneath of it. And then here is a continuation of the three shelves. Then the last panel on this side, which you can't see, which I'll show you separately, are cedar shelves, all about this far apart. Then getting back in the cabin itself, we have three drawers, storage underneath the settees, and a storage underneath the berth itself. That's a lot of stuff you can put on the boat. People are finding that the sweet spot for liveaboard is around a 50 to 52 foot boat, which is exactly what this is, and what our intended market for this boat is. This, the HH50 and the OC50, which has a duplicate interior to this. Do you have storage? Do you have water capacity? Do you have comfortable heads? Do you have the ability to carry the equipment that you're going to have aboard the boat for a year? And I think we can illustrate with this boat that yes, you have all that, and it's close to being a home as it is. It's not like you're going to be making large sacrifices with small cabins or narrow berths or no storage, or you're limited to the weight that you can carry aboard, this boat is balanced just right to carry the things that you need with the passengers that you're going to carry. Has the fuel range, the water capacity, the water making capacity, and the ability to have clothes and live like a normal human being, all in a 50-foot boat. The settee in the cockpit here has the table that can go up and down, and you can have it be fixed. But again, this is another space that's about the same length as the other settees that are in the cockpit and inside the salon. It's a little bit shorter, but it's another potential daybed, but the real daybed is on the starboard side. So with the sliding doors like this all opens up, so your tables are pretty much even. I mean, there's a gap where the doors are, obviously, but if you have a large dinner party, you can have chairs on either side of the settee that's here, here, and here, and then the interior has its own table. So it's very similar to what you've seen on the 55. It's almost the same size, not quite, but it's the same kind of layout. There are two options for the starboard side. You could have an L shape with a table. The advantages of that are, it's an L shape, but you can have people sitting here for dinner, and there's more of a conversational thing rather than everyone facing the same direction, unless you have the other chairs on the side of the table, which you could also do here. So this might be more like what you're used to in a charter boat, that have this kind of massive entertaining in the cockpit. So it's a pretty clever idea. The other way is to have this be the daybed, and that comes across and it's trapezoidal on the corner. What that does is it allows more propane storage, allows for a larger life raft, and has more storage. So if you're fine with already having two tables plus the little one forward where the transverse salon seat is, then maybe that's the way for you to go. Again, it can be up and down, and it can be fixed. If you do the up and down, except for the storage that's missing, you could still have your daybed here. You just need to know where you're going to store that cushion, and we can accommodate for that up in the forward lockers. There's plenty of room to take all the cushions in the entire boat and put them in one of the lockers. With this boat, the owner elected to have some shelves put in. These are all carbon fiber shelves, like everything on the boat, to have for storage space. There is another option that you can do where you don't have this. It's finished off on the inside, and it's just about big enough to put the more narrow 5-gallon jerry jugs for your outboard fuel and so forth. So there's a couple different things we can play with here. Where this differs from the 55 is the 55 is a little nacelle that comes out, and there's a grill there. But what we do is we put the grill here in the corner. The line driver here is in the center, as opposed to being underneath, and it's used to control your traveler from the wheels. Also located here are your Davit control lines, and you bring these back to your winches that are up on the where your wheels are. There is a Fairlead to do that. That just allows you, if you don't want to pull that by hand, you can pull that by winch, which is recommended. And the foot controls for that are in a good place to be, so you can be right there on the winch and have your feet on the controls. 50 seats are an idea off of the Stars and Stripe Blue 55 that we built, where he came up with this idea to have the slope back. I think it's a great idea. You can actually put 3 people on this seat, and there's a cushion that goes behind me, so it allows you to sit here with your remote control for your autopilot and be able to watch what's going on. The other thing about this seat is that it's the appropriate distance for you to sit back with the cushion and put your foot on the wheel. And that's actually a really good way to steer. The other thing is when you're behind the wheel, you're not squished in here, so there's plenty of room. So when you're here and it's raining, you're underneath of your carbon fiber canopy, you have your polycarbonate in front of you, you have your isinglass to the side, or your screens, whatever you're doing. All your instrumentation is here, all your sail controls are here, your throttles, everything like that. But if you do want to step out and see what's going on, you simply just walk to the side, and then you can look forward, look right down the path. You don't have to move the wheel, you don't have to worry about stepping on a small step or anything like that. It's all natural. And this is repeated on the HH50 on both sides of the boat, and on the OC50 you would have one helm, and that would be on the starboard side.